before I start, I wanted to thank you guys for watching my videos. If you enjoyed this video or this channel, please don't forget to like and subscribe. It really means more than you know and allows me to continue to make these tutorials just for you guys. I wanted to create a mini series of smaller tutorials on the process of sculpting some assets. As you saw in the title, this first series will be on some cute sushi inspired assets. This one specifically is based off this beautiful artwork by Derek Laufman. So I'll be breaking it down into separate videos for each asset. That way the videos aren't super long and we can spend more time on each individual asset. So I think for today, I want to start with the cutting board asset. I just think it's the most approachable, to be completely honest. So we're just gonna go with that. I've already brought my image into Nomad, and just in case you are not sure how to do that, I will show you real quick. Once you have opened Nomad, if you click on this little icon up here, you will see this pop up, and you just want to click on reference image, and you'll click on whatever is showing here for you, and then you can go straight into your camera roll by hitting import. It'll ask you if you want to go into your photos or files, and that's pretty much it. And then you can bring it into Nomad. I am going to scale it down a little bit and just move it to the corner, and I'm going to get started. I'm going to get rid of the sphere because we don't need that. Okay, so I went ahead and cropped the image out just so that I could focus on what we are actually going to be sculpting, and I will be adding a link to this reference in the description box below in case you want to follow along and have that reference for yourself. I'm going to start by just inserting a box from my primitives, and the way that I'm going to approach this is really by blocking out the entire scene first, just to get the basic shapes, proportions, and composition laid out. I just find that having things blocked out makes this process feel a lot less like daunting, and you kind of, I don't know, it's just easier for me to feel like I can do this when I first start by just blocking things out. And I'm doing this, and I'm not working in perspective. I know it's kind of hard to tell when you're in a 3D program, but I am making sure this is not selected, and that's just my personal preference, honestly. And just kind of guess on the shape. One thing I do want to keep in mind is the thickness of it. This is a very stylized drawing, and so it's a very chunky cutting board, and once we smooth out the edges and stuff, we're gonna lose some of that thickness. So I want to make sure I'm accounting for that by making it extra thick and chunky. And I'm not going to validate it yet. I'm still blocking stuff out, so I'm just kind of building that there so I have it, and then we'll build on top of that. And once I'm ready to sculpt on it and really make, you know, the details, then I'll go in and validate that. But for now, it's good as it is. And I'm sorry if you hear some background noise. My dog is in the crate and she is chewing on her little bone, so you might be hearing that. Okay, so moving on, I think I'm just gonna make the shape here of the main fish body, and there's a couple ways I can do that, but I think the best way is going to be with the tube tool. And I'm gonna use curve, and I'm just gonna draw a very basic little curve here. I might only need 3 points for now. And the reason I'm using the curve tool is because I am able to control the radius of each of the nodes, which I very much want, because as you can see, our fish body here tapers down into the tail. I guess that's just a tail of the fish, technically, right? His head is missing, or her head, we don't know. But that way I can have control of each of those, not just their, you know, the radius, but also the shape itself here, and being able to shape that as the way I want to. So I think that the curve tool is a great for this. And again, I'm just doing a very basic blocking out. I'm not worried about being perfect, even though I'm tweaking, because, you know, we're not going to validate this, so we will continue to tweak as we continue, but for now, it's a matter of laying down our big shapes. And then for this, I guess, fish fillet part, we can, again, do it multiple ways. So I could either cut this, like cut a piece of this and use that, or I can simply use a cylinder, which I think it's what I'm going to do because I don't want to validate this necessarily yet. I'm obviously not done with it, and in order to cut it, I will need to validate it. So I think it's just easier to use a cylinder in this case. I'm gonna bring it down, scale it here, and then I'm gonna move it to the side. I'm gonna turn on my wireframe because it's kind of hard to see the shape here exactly, but if I have wireframe on, that's a little bit easier. And then I could be very extra, like I obviously want this to look like it came from here, it was directly cut, and so in order to match the size better, I might just do one of these numbers so that I can make sure that the scale is at least believable. See, like I had it very small before, and this is a little bit annoying because it's not, our fish body is a little bit twisted and whatnot, but it's okay. Sure, that works for me. And then now I'm just going to, oops, no, okay, that's not gonna work. We'll just eyeball it. Oh well. I think that looks good. I think we are even for the most part. I'm sure that I could reset the, let me see. There we go. We can. Okay, good. And then we'll just put it over here. Okay, and so I'm looking at this right now, and I think our fish parts are too big, or our cutting board is too small, whichever, doesn't really matter. I could adjust either or. It's really not, doesn't really matter. I guess it's easier to just adjust the cutting board, but you know, you could just kind of look at the image and see that there's a lot of room underneath this fish fillet. She's more directly in front of the fish body, and this is kind of the point of doing this block out, because then you could kind of, before you start to get into the nitty-gritty of the details, you can really figure these things out. But of course you can do that at any part of the process. It doesn't necessarily have to be now, but that's just kind of the way I approach it. But okay, I think I'm happy with that for now. And let's see, next we can do the cleaver. So for the cleaver, I am going to do the blade first, and before I do that, actually, I'm going to start naming these things here so that make my life easier. Oops. So this will be our cutting board. Okay, and now I'm gonna insert a box, and this is going to be our blade here. And let's see, let me think about this. So I'm gonna make the cube to be as thick as the biggest, I guess the thickest part of the blade. And then some. Again, this is stylized, and not necessarily always, but oftentimes when you think of stylization, or really just looking at this photo, it's chunky, it's it's chunky. You know, the proportions are not really realistic, so I'm gonna keep that in mind. And then I think the length is maybe fine. And for this one, I am actually going to, let me see, wireframe. I'm gonna add a little bit more subdivisions on it. Yeah, I'm not gonna do that one, but this one rather, to add more cubes to it. And then I'm gonna validate. And the reason being that I do need to cut this, and I can't cut it without having validated it. So in order to cut this guy, we are going to use the trim tool, and I want to use line with symmetry. And let me look at the symmetry here. Symmetry needs to be local, and it needs to be on the y-axis. And yeah, okay, so I'm gonna solo this, and my goal here is to pretty much just taper this square into like an edge. Okay, so with that line tool, it's a little bit tricky. Let's see. That might work, honestly. Let me kind of play with smoothing it a little bit and just see if that's gonna give me, I think that'll be good. Now obviously that looks, you know, that's rough, but it's what I want. And then I can always scale this. You could also cut it if you feel like that would be better. I'm just gonna leave it like that for now, and instead just kind of scale it a little bit. And then I'm going to do the handle while I'm here as well. And for the handle, similarly, so I am going to create another box. And for this box, we're going to scale it to create that rectangular shape. Wireframe if you're having a hard time seeing which is which. And make sure to just look at it from all the different angles. And I think that's good. It's probably a little bit too long, so I'm gonna cut it down. And I think, again, this is rough. This is blocking out. This is not our finished product, but I think, again, it's just more of like getting those bigger, rougher shapes. And of course this is way too big, but I think this may be a little bit better. Okay, and then for the handle, in order to get that kind of taper, how it's wider at the base and then it kind of tapers into the blade, we are going to want to validate this. And let's look at it for a moment. I'm going to take some subdivisions away to just make this a little bit easier. Okay, so I'm going to validate that handle, and then I'm going to use the mask tool. I'm going to use selection mask, and I'm going to use this lasso tool to just, honestly, let's just grab some of this up here, and then I'm going to tap it to blur that mask out and give us, you know, that kind of ombre effect here. I just use the scale. I think that'll work, and then do both on the X and the Y axes. I'm going to scale those two until I'm satisfied with that, and then I'm going to go back into my mask and just clear that out. And I think that's good. Now, of course, we can smooth this out once we feel like that's what we should do, but right now I don't want to do that yet because, again, we're still just blocking it out, but I think that'll work. Okay, and then we are missing our little fins on our fish. So let's add that. I'm going to do so using a sphere. And I'm going to just scale it this way to just squeeze it in. And then do the same for the other side. Scale that down. And let's see, I'm gonna snap it so that I could just rotate it 90 degrees and bring it down to approximately where that should go. I think I could use a little bit more of that. Okay. And then I'm gonna just use the clone here to duplicate, and that way I don't have to do it more than once, and I can just rotate that in and place it approximately where I think that tail is. Okay. And of course that's not, you know, perfect by any means, but that's not the point. We're going to keep it there for now. And then I'm going to clone that again to make our little fins up here, our side fins, or don't know what they're called, but we're going to call them the side fins. I'm going to just rotate it. Make those smaller. Clone that again. And just push it into it. The other one will eventually end up, you know, probably merging those together to create one shape, so we won't have that harsh line between them. I'm gonna actually grab them both, and I'll also need to be naming this so that I know what I'm touching, but I don't even know. Okay, so those two, let me just rotate them like so. Something like that. Again, it's not perfect. We'll get into it some more afterwards. But I wanted to have the general shape, and then I'm going to grab that, clone it, and bring it down because he has another fin that they're laying on here. And just kind of push it into it there. Oh, I just realized I took the fin from up here instead of cloning it. That's okay. We can just do it again. We're just going to clone that one again. Okay, there we go. Okay guys, so that was blocking out our cutting board asset. On the next video, we will be adding all of the sculptural details onto our objects. So I will see you guys there.